Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked out at the stars. He had been waiting for this day his whole life. Today, humans would meet aliens for the first time. Real aliens. Not the made-up ones from movies, but actual living beings from another world. The ship was called the Endeavor. It was not the biggest ship in Earth's fleet, but it was the newest. Jake had picked his crew very carefully for this mission. Each person was the best at what they did. Lisa Parker was his diplomatic officer. She knew how to talk to people and make them feel comfortable. She had studied every language on Earth and could speak 12 of them perfectly. If anyone could make friends with aliens, it would be Lisa. Ben Carter was the chief engineer. He could fix anything that broke and build new things from spare parts. Ben had worked on the translation device they would use today. He knew every wire and circuit in that machine. Amy Rodriguez was their communications specialist. She could pick up radio signals from across the galaxy and figure out what they meant. Amy had been the first person to hear the alien messages 3 months ago. Jake looked at his crew and felt proud. They were about to make history. The planet they were approaching was called Zephyria Prime. It was a beautiful world covered in crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds. The aliens who lived there called themselves Zeltharians. From what the humans could tell, they were made of living crystal. The Zeltharians had sent messages to Earth using radio waves. The messages were friendly. They wanted to meet humans and learn about them. They had even sent coordinates for where the human ship should land. Jake walked over to Lisa, who was studying her notes at a computer terminal. She had been preparing for this meeting for weeks. "How are you feeling?" Jake asked her. Lisa looked up and smiled, but Jake could see she was nervous. "I think I'm ready," she said. "I've practiced the greeting 100 times. The translation device should handle everything perfectly." The translation device sat on a table nearby. It looked like a small metal box with lights and buttons on it. Earth's best scientists had built it using the alien language samples they had received. The device would listen to human words and change them into alien language. It would also listen to alien words and change them into English. Ben Carter had spent days checking every part of the device. He ran his hands through his hair and looked tired. "The machine is working perfectly," he told Jake. "All the language patterns are loaded. The cultural database is complete. It should translate everything correctly." Amy Rodriguez was sitting at her station, listening to signals from the planet below. She wore large headphones and had her eyes closed, concentrating hard. "They're still sending us the landing coordinates," she reported. "The signals are getting stronger as we get closer. I think they're excited to meet us too." Jake nodded and walked to the front window of the bridge. The planet was getting bigger as they approached. The crystal formations on the surface caught the light from the system's star and threw it back in amazing colors. It was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. "Captain," said Amy, "I'm picking up new signals. I think they're preparing for our arrival." "There are lots of voices talking at once." "What are they saying?" Jake asked. "I can't tell without the translator," Amy replied, "but they sound happy. Their voices have a musical quality like singing." Lisa stood up and smoothed down her uniform. She had chosen to wear Earth's formal diplomatic outfit, a simple blue suit with the United Earth symbol on the sleeve. She wanted to look professional but friendly. "The translator is programmed with all our standard greetings," Lisa said, checking her notes one more time. "I'll start with a simple introduction. Tell them who we are and that we come in peace. Then I'll invite them to share information about their culture." Ben walked over to the translator and ran one final check. All the lights were green. "Everything looks good," he said. "The device has been programmed with over 10,000 Zeltarian words and phrases. It knows their grammar rules and cultural customs. This should go smoothly." Jake felt excitement building in his chest. This was really happening. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they were about to find out they had neighbors. "Amy, open a channel to Earth Command," Jake ordered. "Let them know we're beginning our approach." Amy pressed several buttons on her control panel. "Channel open, Captain." "Earth Command, this is Captain Morrison aboard the Endeavor. We are beginning our final approach to Zephyria Prime. All systems are functioning normally. The crew is ready for first contact. We will report back after the meeting." A voice crackled through the speakers from millions of miles away. "Copy that, Endeavor. Good luck. And remember, you're representing all of humanity today." Jake felt the weight of those words. Every human on Earth was counting on them to make a good first impression. Children would read about this day in history books. Scientists would study every word that was spoken. "Lisa, are you ready?" Jake asked. Lisa picked up the translator device and held it carefully in her hands. "As ready as I'll ever be, Captain." "Ben, take us down to the landing coordinates." "Yes, sir." "Beginning descent now." The ship started moving toward the planet's surface. Through the windows, the crew could see the crystal formations getting bigger and more detailed. They could see structures that looked like buildings, but they were made entirely of colorful crystal. There were no roads or vehicles that they could recognize. "Look at that," Amy whispered, pointing out the window. "Are those the aliens?" Jake looked where she was pointing. Moving between the crystal buildings were tall, glowing figures. Even from this distance, they could see that the beings were beautiful and graceful. They seemed to be made of the same crystal as their buildings, but they moved like living creatures. "Those are Zeltharians," Jake said quietly. "Our new neighbors." The ship settled gently onto a flat area near the crystal city. Through the windows, they could see more Zeltharian beings gathering around their landing site. The aliens seemed curious but not afraid. "Well," Jake said, taking a deep breath, "this is it. Let's go make some friends." Lisa checked the translator one more time and nodded. "Let's make history, Captain." Jake Morrison and his crew stepped out of their ship onto the crystal surface of Zephyria Prime. The ground felt solid under their feet, but it sparkled like a mirror made of diamonds. The air was clean and had a sweet smell, like flowers after rain. The Zeltharian beings who had gathered around their ship were even more amazing up close. They were tall, much taller than humans, and their bodies were made of what looked like living crystal. The crystal was not cold and hard like stone. Instead, it seemed warm and alive, with a light flowing through it like colored water. Lisa Parker held the translator device tightly in her hands. She had practiced this moment so many times, but now that it was really happening, her heart was beating fast. She tried to remember everything she had learned about being a diplomat. "Stay calm," Jake whispered to his crew. "Let them make the first move." The Zeltharians were making soft musical sounds as they moved closer. Their crystal bodies made tiny ringing noises when they walked, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Some of them were blue and green, others were red and gold. The colors shifted and changed as they moved. Then the crowd of aliens parted and someone very special walked through. The new Zeltharian was bigger than the others and much more beautiful. Her crystal body was deep purple mixed with bright gold, and the colors moved through her like slow lightning. She wore what looked like a crown made of the same crystal material, but it was part of her body, not a separate piece. "That must be their leader," Amy said quietly. The special Zeltharian walked straight toward the human crew. As she got closer, they could see that she was very old. Not old like a human gets old, but old in a way that showed great wisdom and experience. The light in her crystal body moved slower and deeper than in the younger Zeltharians. She stopped a few feet away from the humans and began to make sounds. The sounds were beautiful, like music and speech mixed together. The other Zeltharians became very quiet and still, showing great respect. Lisa knew this was the moment she had trained for. She stepped forward, holding the translator device in front of her. The machine was already turned on and ready to work. "This is it," Lisa thought to herself. "Don't mess this up." She looked at the alien leader and smiled in what she hoped was a friendly way. Then she spoke clearly into the translator device using the exact words she had practiced. "Your Majesty, it is an honor to meet you. We come in friendship and hope for a bright future between our peoples." Lisa held out her right hand toward the alien leader, just like humans do when they want to shake hands and be friendly. It was a simple gesture that meant peace and respect on Earth. The translator device began to work. It made soft beeping sounds as it processed Lisa's words. The machine had been programmed with thousands of alien words and phrases. It knew about Zeltharian culture and customs. Earth's best scientist had worked for months to make sure it would translate everything correctly. The device finished processing and began to broadcast Lisa's words in the Zeltharian language. The sounds that came out were musical and beautiful, just like the sounds the aliens made when they talked to each other. But something was wrong. The alien leader's crystal body suddenly changed color. The beautiful purple and gold shifted to bright red like fire or blood. The red color spread through her crystal form quickly, and she began to make loud, harsh sounds. The other Zeltharians started changing color too. Their calm blues and greens became angry reds and oranges. They began moving in ways that looked threatening, and the musical sounds they made became sharp and unpleasant. "What's happening?" Jake asked, but no one could answer him. The alien leader was making more sounds now, louder and more angry. Her crystal body was flashing between different shades of red, and the crown-like part of her head was glowing brightly. Ben Carter looked at the translator device in confusion. "All the lights are green," he said. The machine says it translated everything correctly, but clearly something was very wrong. The Zeltharians were acting like the humans had said something terrible. Some of the younger aliens were moving closer, and their crystal bodies were changing shape, becoming sharp and pointed like weapons. Lisa felt panic rising in her chest. She had said the exact words she was supposed to say. She had practiced them 100 times. The greeting was supposed to be polite and friendly. "Maybe I should try again," Lisa said, but Jake held up his hand to stop her. "Wait," Jake said. "Let's see what they do first." The alien leader was still making angry sounds. She was pointing at Lisa with one long crystal arm, and the pointing looked like an accusation. Other Zeltharians joined in, making a chorus of upset noises that hurt the humans' ears. Amy Rodriguez was watching everything carefully. As a communications specialist, she was trained to notice patterns in how people acted and spoke. "Captain," she said, "I think we just insulted them somehow." "But how?" Lisa asked. "I said exactly what we planned. I was polite and respectful." Ben was checking the translator device again, pressing buttons and looking at the display screen. "The machine says it worked perfectly. Every word was translated correctly according to our database." The alien leader was getting more upset by the second. Her red crystal body was now flashing like an alarm, and the sounds she was making were getting louder and more angry. The other Zeltharians were responding to her lead, and soon the whole group was making upset noises. Jake realized they were in serious trouble. This was supposed to be a peaceful first meeting between two species. Instead, it looked like they had accidentally started a fight. "Everyone stay calm," Jake said to his crew. "Don't make any sudden movements." But the situation was getting worse. More Zeltharians were arriving, drawn by the commotion. They were all changing to angry colors when they saw what was happening. The crystal beings were starting to form a circle around the human crew. Lisa looked down at the translator device in her hands. It was still showing green lights, still saying everything was working correctly, but something had gone terribly wrong. "I don't understand," she said. "What did I say to make them so angry?" The alien leader was making what sounded like a formal speech now, her voice carrying clearly across the crystal ground. Whatever she was saying, it sounded important and official. The other Zeltharians were listening respectfully, but they were still showing angry colors. Jake made a decision. "Ben, can you use the translator to ask what's wrong?" Ben took the device from Lisa and spoke into it carefully. "We apologize if we have caused offense. Can you tell us what we did wrong?" The translator processed his words and broadcast them in Zeltharian language. But instead of calming things down, this seemed to make the aliens even more angry. The leader's response was immediate and forceful. Even without understanding the words, the humans could tell she was very upset about something. "That didn't help," Amy observed. Jake looked around at his crew and then at the angry aliens surrounding them. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Something had gone wrong with their translation, and now they were in the middle of an interstellar incident. "We need to figure this out fast," Jake said, "before this gets any worse." But how could they fix a problem when they didn't even understand what they had done wrong? The situation was getting worse by the minute. The alien leader's crystal body was now flashing bright red like a warning light. She was making sounds that were definitely not friendly, and every Zeltharian around them was responding the same way. Jake Morrison watched in horror as more crystal beings arrived. They were coming from all directions, flowing out of the crystal buildings like angry waves. Each new arrival looked at the human crew and immediately changed to the same angry red color. "Captain," Amy Rodriguez said, her voice tight with worry. "I'm counting at least 50 of them now, and more are coming." The alien leader was still making her angry speech. Her voice was getting louder and more forceful with each word. The sounds she made were beautiful in a frightening way, like a storm or an earthquake set to music. Ben Carter was frantically working with the translator device, pushing buttons and checking readouts. "I don't understand what went wrong," he said. "The machine is working perfectly. Every system is green. The translation should have been accurate." Lisa Parker felt sick to her stomach. This was her fault. She was the diplomatic officer, and somehow she had turned a peaceful first contact into a disaster. "I just said hello," she said quietly. I was polite. I followed every rule of diplomatic contact. But the evidence was clear. Whatever the translator had said to the aliens, it was not what Lisa had intended. The Zeltharians were treating the humans like enemies now, not like the friends they were supposed to be. The alien leader finished her speech and pointed directly at Lisa. Then she made a gesture that looked like a challenge. She held up her crystal arms and her body shifted shape, becoming more angular and sharp. The other Zeltharians copied her movements. "That looks like a fighting stance," Jake said grimly. Amy was studying the aliens' behavior patterns. "Captain, I think they're preparing for some kind of combat. Look at how they're positioning themselves." It was true. The Zeltharians were no longer just standing around looking angry. They were moving into organized groups surrounding the human crew from all sides. Their crystal bodies were changing shape, becoming more like weapons than like people. "This is bad," Ben said, still working on the translator. "This is really bad." Jake's mind was racing. He had to find a way to fix this situation before it became violent. But how could he communicate with beings who thought he was their enemy? The alien leader made another sound, and suddenly all the Zeltharians began to move at once. They stepped closer to the humans, their crystal bodies ringing like bells as they moved. The sound was threatening, like sword blades scraping together. "Everyone stay together," Jake ordered his crew. "Don't run. Don't make any threatening moves." But the Zeltharians were not stopping. They kept moving closer, and their crystal bodies were getting sharper and more dangerous looking. Some of them now looked like walking weapons made of living diamond. Lisa tried one more time with the translator. "Please," she said into the device. "We come in peace. We mean you no harm." The translator processed her words and broadcast them in Zeltharian language. But instead of calming the situation, this seemed to make things even worse. The alien leader's response was immediate and violent sounding. She made sounds like breaking glass mixed with thunder. The other Zeltharians joined in, creating a chorus of angry crystal voices that hurt the humans' ears. "Stop using the translator," Jake shouted. "It's making things worse." Ben quickly turned off the device, but the damage was already done. The Zeltharians were now clearly preparing for war. Their peaceful crystal city had become an armed camp in just a few minutes. Amy was trying to understand what was happening by watching the aliens' body language. "Captain, look at their colors. They're not just angry. I think they're insulted, like we said something really offensive, but what?" Lisa asked desperately. "What could I have possibly said?" The alien leader was making another formal speech. This time other Zeltharians were responding, their voices joining hers in what sounded like a war chant. The crystal beings were working themselves up for a fight. Jake looked around at his crew. They were good people, the best humanity had to offer. They had come here with friendship in their hearts and hope for the future. But somehow, through no fault of their own, they had created an interstellar incident. "We need to get back to the ship," Jake said. "If we can reach the Endeavor, we can call for help." But the Zeltharians had thought of that. Several crystal beings had moved to block the path to the human ship. Their bodies were glowing with threatening light, and they looked ready to fight. The alien leader was pointing at the humans again, making accusatory sounds. Whatever she was saying, it was clearly about them, and it was clearly not good. "I think she's declaring war," Amy said quietly. Jake felt the weight of failure crushing down on him. He had been chosen to represent all of humanity in this historic moment. Instead of making friends with Earth's first alien neighbors, he had somehow turned them into enemies. The translator device lay silent in Ben's hands. The machine that was supposed to bridge the gap between two species had instead created a chasm that might never be crossed. "What do we do now, Captain?" Lisa asked. Jake looked at the ring of angry crystal beings surrounding them. Their bodies were flashing with red light, and the sounds they were making were getting more and more threatening. Soon this would move beyond words and gestures to actual violence. "I don't know," Jake admitted. "I honestly don't know." The alien leader raised her crystal arms high above her head. The other Zeltharians copied her movement, creating a forest of sharp crystal weapons pointing toward the humans. Then she began to make the loudest sound yet. It was like a war cry, but also like a song, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The other aliens joined in, their voices combining into a harmony that shook the ground beneath the humans' feet. Ben looked down at the translator device in his hands. There has to be something wrong with the programming, he said. Some kind of error in the cultural database. Why, can you fix it? Jake asked. Not here, not now, Ben replied. I'd need time to go through the entire code line by line. Time they didn't have. The Zeltharians were clearly preparing to do something drastic. Their war chant was reaching a crescendo, and their crystal bodies were glowing brighter with each passing second. Lisa felt tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I've ruined everything. But Jake wasn't ready to give up. There had to be a way to fix this. There had to be a way to show the aliens that this was all a mistake. The question was, how do you apologize to someone when your translator is the thing that got you in trouble in the first place? The alien leader's war chant reached its peak, and suddenly she brought her crystal arms down in a slashing motion. It was clearly a signal because all the other Zeltharians responded at once. They began to advance on the human crew, their crystal bodies sharp and ready for battle. The peaceful first contact had become humanity's first interstellar war, and it had all started with a simple hello. Jake Morrison watched the crystal warriors advancing toward his crew, and knew he had only seconds to act. The Zeltharians moved like living weapons, their bodies sharp and glowing with angry red light. In moments, this would become the first battle between humans and aliens. But Jake was not a warrior. He was an explorer. His job was to solve problems, not fight wars. And right now, he had the biggest problem in human history to solve. Ben, Jake shouted over the sound of the approaching crystal beings. The translator is the problem, right? Ben Carter looked up from the device in his hands. It has to be. Something in the programming went wrong. Then we stopped using it, Jake said. He grabbed the translator from Ben's hands and held it high above his head. Everyone watch me. The advancing Zeltharians slowed down when they saw Jake holding their translation device. They seemed curious about what he was going to do with it. Jake looked directly at the alien leader. Her crystal body was still flashing red with anger, but she had stopped moving forward. She was watching him carefully. I'm sorry, Jake said loudly, even though he knew she couldn't understand English. We made a mistake. Then he threw the translator device down onto the crystal ground as hard as he could. The machine hit the surface with a loud crash. Metal pieces scattered everywhere, and sparks flew from the broken circuits. The device that had caused all their problems was now just a pile of broken parts. The effect on the Zeltharians was immediate. They stopped advancing and stared at the broken machine. Their angry red colors began to fade, replaced by what looked like confusion. Blue and green colors started mixing with the red in their crystal bodies. Good, Amy Rodriguez said quietly. That got their attention, but Jake wasn't done. Breaking the translator was just the first step. Now he had to find a way to communicate without it. He pointed to himself and said clearly, Jake, human. Then he pointed to Lisa, Ben, and Amy in turn. Lisa, human. Ben, human. Amy, human. The alien leader tilted her crystalline head, watching him with what seemed like curiosity. The angry red color in her body was fading more, replaced by cooler blues and purples. Jake pointed to the broken translator, then made an exaggerated, sad face. He shook his head and held up his hands in a gesture that meant no good in many human cultures. Translator bad, he said, pointing to the broken device. Translator wrong. Ben caught on to what Jake was trying to do. He knelt down and picked up a piece of the broken machine. He held it up and made the same sad face Jake had made. Then he threw the piece away and brushed off his hands like he was getting rid of something dirty. Lisa joined in too. She pointed to herself, then to the alien leader, then made a gesture with both hands that meant friendship on Earth. Palms open, arms spread wide. She smiled the biggest, most genuine smile she could manage. Amy had an idea. She remembered that music seemed to be important to the Zeltharians. Their language sounded musical, and they had been making musical war chants. She began to hum a simple, peaceful tune, a lullaby her mother had sung to her when she was little. The effect was amazing. The Zeltharians' crystal bodies began to change color again, but this time toward calmer shades. The alien leader's red anger was almost completely gone, replaced by thoughtful blues and curious greens. Jake realized they were making progress. He needed to take this further. He knelt down on the crystal ground and began to draw simple pictures with his finger in the dust that had settled around their landing site. First, he drew a circle to represent Earth. Then he drew stick figures to represent humans. He pointed to the stick figures, then to himself and his crew. Next, he drew another circle to represent Zephyria Prime. He drew different figures with lots of spiky lines to represent the crystal Zeltharians. He pointed to these figures, then to the alien leader. The Zeltharians were watching carefully now. Several of them moved closer to see Jake's drawings better. Their crystal bodies were ringing softly, making gentle musical sounds instead of the harsh war chants from before. Jake drew a line between the two circles, connecting Earth and Zephyria Prime. Then he drew the human stick figures and the Zeltharian figures standing together, side by side. The alien leader made a soft sound and stepped closer to look at the drawing. Her crystal body was now mostly blue and green, with just a little bit of red remaining. She seemed to understand what Jake was trying to show her. Ben had another idea. He was an engineer, and engineers think in numbers and logic. He began to draw mathematical equations in the dust. Simple things that any intelligent species would understand. 2 plus 2 or 4, the formula for a circle, basic geometric shapes. The Zeltharians seemed very interested in the math. Several of them began making musical sounds that almost sounded like counting. The alien leader knelt down next to Ben and used one crystal finger to draw her own mathematical symbols in the dust. Amy continued humming, but now she was trying to match the musical tones the Zeltharians made when they talked. She listened carefully to their sounds and tried to copy the rhythm and melody. Some of the younger Zeltharians began to hum along with her, creating a strange but beautiful harmony between human and alien voices. Lisa was working on the emotional side of communication. She exaggerated her facial expressions, making sure the aliens could see when she was happy, sad, confused, or apologetic. She pointed to the broken translator and made a very sorry face. Then she pointed to the alien leader and made a questioning face like she was asking, "Are you okay?" Slowly, carefully, the alien leader responded. She pointed to herself and made a sound that might have been her name. Then she pointed to Lisa and made a questioning sound. "Lisa," Lisa said, pointing to herself. "Lisa." The alien leader tried to copy the sound. It came out musical and strange, but it was recognizably an attempt at saying Lisa. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. This was working. They were actually communicating without the broken translator. The alien leader stood up and made a gesture to the other Zeltharians. The angry red colors disappeared completely from their crystal bodies, replaced by calm blues and curious greens. The sharp, weapon-like shapes of their bodies softened back into more peaceful forms. Ben drew more pictures in the dust, showing the human ship and the journey from Earth. He drew the solar system, with the sun in the center and planets around it. He pointed to the third planet and then to himself. The alien leader understood. She began drawing her own pictures, showing the crystal city and the star system they lived in. Her drawings were beautiful and detailed, made with the precision of someone who understood mathematics and art. Amy noticed something important. When the Zeltharians were calm and happy, they made soft musical sounds. When they were excited or interested, the sounds got faster and higher. When they were confused, the sounds got slower and lower. It was like a language made of emotions and music. Lisa tried making some of these musical sounds herself. She started with soft, peaceful tones to show she was friendly. The alien leader responded with similar sounds, and soon they were having a conversation made entirely of musical tones and gestures. Jake stepped back and watched his crew work. Each of them was using their own skills to bridge the gap between species. Ben was using math and logic. Amy was using music and sound patterns. Lisa was using emotions and body language, and somehow it was working. The alien leader made a new sound, longer and more complex than the others. It sounded like a question. She pointed to the broken translator, then to the humans, then made a gesture that clearly meant, "What happened?" Jake knew this was the most important moment. He had to explain that the translator had made a mistake without being able to use words. He pointed to the broken device, then covered his face with his hands like he was embarrassed. He shook his head sadly and made apologetic sounds. Then he had an idea that would change everything. Jake Morrison had an idea that seemed crazy, but it might just work. He walked over to where Lisa was standing and gently took her hand. Then he guided her to stand in front of the alien leader. "Trust me," Jake whispered to Lisa. Jake pointed to Lisa, then to the alien leader. He made the same hand gesture that Lisa had made during the original greeting, the simple human handshake gesture that had somehow started this whole mess. Then Jake did something unexpected. He started acting out what he thought the translator might have said wrong. He puffed out his chest like he was trying to look tough. He pointed at the alien leader and made exaggerated fighting motions with his fists. He pretended to challenge her to a fight, making it as silly and over-the-top as possible. The alien leader watched this performance with growing interest. Her crystal body was shifting through different colors as she tried to understand what Jake was showing her. But Jake wasn't done. He held his nose and made a disgusted face like he was smelling something terrible. He pointed to all the Zeltharians and waved his hand in front of his nose, pretending they smelled bad. Ben Carter caught on to what Jake was doing. He joined in the performance, making even sillier faces and gestures. He pretended to be disgusted and tough at the same time, creating a ridiculous combination of expressions. Amy Rodriguez understood too. She started making exaggerated sounds to go along with the acting, creating silly voices and sound effects that made the performance even more ridiculous. Lisa was confused at first, but then she realized what her crewmates were trying to do. They were showing the aliens what the translator must have actually said instead of her polite greeting. She joined in, acting out the role of someone making terrible insults while trying to shake hands politely. The four humans created a comedy show right there on the crystal ground. They acted out the most ridiculous, over-the-top version of diplomatic failure they could imagine. Jake pretended to challenge the alien leader to arm wrestling. Ben acted like he was insulting the beautiful Crystal City. Amy made sounds like she was complaining about everything. Lisa pretended to be confused about why everyone was upset with her perfectly reasonable behavior. At first, the Zeltharians just watched in confusion. But then something wonderful happened. The alien leader's crystal body began to vibrate in a new way. It started slowly, just small tremors running through her crystalline form. Then the vibrations got stronger and more rhythmic. Amy was the first to realize what was happening. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think she's laughing." The alien leader was indeed laughing. The vibrations in her crystal body were creating musical sounds that were clearly expressions of joy and amusement. The sound was beautiful, like wind chimes and bells mixed together. The laughter was contagious. Other Zeltharians began to vibrate and ring in the same way. Soon the entire group of crystal beings was making musical laughter that filled the air with beautiful sound. The alien leader laughed so hard that she had to sit down on the crystal ground. Her body was flashing through bright, happy colors, yellows and oranges and bright blues. She was clearly finding the human comedy show very funny. Jake realized they had done it. They had found a way to communicate the truth, that the whole incident had been a ridiculous accident caused by a machine that translated hello into something completely inappropriate. Ben quickly put together a basic communication device using parts from their ship's computer. It wasn't as sophisticated as the broken translator, but it could handle simple words and phrases. When it was ready, he spoke into it carefully. "We are sorry," he said. "Machine was wrong." We said hello. Machine said something else. The device translated his words into simple Zeltharian language. The alien leader listened and then responded in her own language. The machine translated back. "Machine said you challenged me to mating combat and that we smell like dead fungus." There was a moment of silence as the humans processed this information. Then Lisa burst out laughing. "Oh no," she said. "No wonder you were angry." Jake started laughing too. "We accidentally challenged your queen to a fight and insulted your entire species in the same sentence." Ben was laughing so hard he could barely speak. The cultural database must have had a major error. It mixed up greeting protocols with challenge rituals. Amy was trying to catch her breath between laughs. And we kept trying to apologize, which probably made it worse. The alien leader, who they learned was indeed Queen Vexithara, found their laughter just as funny as they found the situation. Her crystal body was now glowing with warm, happy colors, and her musical laughter mixed with the humans' voices to create a beautiful sound. Through the simple translator, Queen Vexithara explained that she had realized something was wrong when the humans looked so confused by her angry response. She said that no species would be stupid enough to insult someone and then look surprised when they got angry. "But," she added through the translator, "your machine insulted me so perfectly that we thought you had studied our culture for years just to be as rude as possible." This made everyone laugh even harder. The idea that humans would travel across the galaxy just to be perfectly rude to aliens was absurd. Queen Vexthera stood up and approached Lisa directly. Through the translator, she said, "Your greeting was meant to show friendship, yes?" "Yes," Lisa said, still smiling. "We came here hoping to be friends." The Queen's crystal body shifted to warm, welcoming colors. She extended one crystalline hand toward Lisa in a gesture that was clearly the Zeltharian version of a handshake. Lisa took the crystal hand carefully. It was warm and smooth, and she could feel gentle vibrations running through it, the alien equivalent of a friendly pulse. "Friends," Queen Vexithara said in English, having learned the word from listening to the humans talk. "Friends," Lisa agreed. Ben was already working on building a better translator using Zeltharian help. The aliens were fascinated by human technology, and they had their own advanced systems that could help bridge the language gap. Amy was learning to speak basic Zeltharian by copying their musical tones. She discovered that she had a good ear for their language, and soon she was having simple conversations with some of the younger aliens. Jake was talking with Queen Vexithera about setting up regular communication between Earth and Zephyria Prime. The Queen was very interested in learning more about human culture, especially their sense of humor. "You turn disasters into joy," she told Jake through the improved translator. "This is a valuable skill." As the day went on, more Zeltharians came to meet the humans. Word had spread through the Crystal City that the aliens from Earth were funny and friendly, not rude and challenging. The failed first contact had become the foundation for a real friendship. Queen Vexithara gave the humans a special gift before they left, a small crystal that would serve as a better translator. But she made them promise to keep the broken machine as a reminder. "Never forget," she said, "that understanding between different peoples requires more than just words. It requires patience, creativity, and the ability to laugh at mistakes." Jake promised they would remember. The broken translator would go in a museum on Earth, with a sign that told the story of humanity's most embarrassing and most successful first contact. As the Endeavor prepared to leave Zephyria Prime, Jake looked out at the Crystal City one more time. They had come here hoping to make history, and they had, just not in the way they expected. "Captain," Lisa said, "what do we tell Earth Command about what happened?" Jake smiled. "We tell them the truth. That we learned the most important thing about meeting aliens. Sometimes the best diplomacy starts with everyone having a good laugh." The ship lifted off from the crystal surface, carrying the crew back toward Earth. But they weren't really leaving. They were carrying home the seeds of a friendship that would grow between two very different species, a friendship that started with the worst translation in galactic history and turned into the best laugh anyone had ever shared across the stars. Behind them, the Zeltharians watched the human ship disappear into space, their crystal bodies still glowing with the warm colors of friendship and joy. Queen Vexthera was already planning her own visit to Earth, where she hoped to learn more about this amazing human ability to find humor in disaster. The first contact was over, but the real relationship between humans and Zeltharians was just beginning.